Can I get everybody to get seated? Thanks. This is an exciting session. Absolutely technology. I love technology. So let me just get a few people to find their seats. But before we talk about technology, I'd like to show you this presentation, this picture in actual fact. And when you look at this picture, this is your business. Your business have got a body, a mind, and a soul. Don't think at your business as one thing. And when it comes down to innovation, when you innovate your body, you're looking at your physical assets, the technology, the systems that you've got, the products that you sell, the services that you offer, operations and logistics. And you have a certain method regarding that in terms of innovation. But what people do is they forget the most important thing in a business are the people. And that's the mind of a business. And how do you get sustainable high performance in any business? You look after your people. You innovate the people. You innovate the culture and the diversity, the leadership, the talents, the skills, the collaboration, the strategy and innovation. It doesn't come by itself. A lot of people just, they see the business as just this business. And in the inner core is the soul, the core values of your business, the vision that you have, the purpose, the mission, and obviously, very importantly, the impact that your business is going to make in South Africa and to the world. So let's start before, the panel is going to talk about technology. And I think that one thing about technology that's interesting for me is that I love technology. I've got lots of toys. But what you shouldn't do is create a museum of technology. You have the fanciest technology. I've got the biggest this, and I've got the biggest that, and the most expensive this. And that, it reminds me about a story in the space race. The Americans, when they went to space, they wanted to develop a pen, the ballpoint pen, to write in space. And they put a couple of $1 million in the development of this pen. And the Russians, they did nothing, they just took a pencil. So be careful of going the ballpoint pen and not using the pencil. So we're talking about technology adoption, and the discussion lead is Johan Stefan, an intro by Lofi Brandt. Thank you, panel, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I must say, sitting here the last couple of days and looking at what we need to discuss now, I think a lot has gone around technology and data. I think if one just think of a couple of sessions or one of the sessions this morning, how much was being said about data and the utilization of data. And I think if one considers where data is coming from, I would probably imagine that 99% of all data is being generated by some form of technology. And I think that sort of gives us an indication of how important technology is. But the question is, how high-tech or how high-tech is high-tech? Now, I must say, I'm not sure who thought about this one, but it took me a couple of days to figure out exactly what it means. But technology is not about having the latest gadget. It's about making better decisions, reducing risk, improving efficiency, and building a more resilient potato industry for future generations. Over the last day or two, we've spoken about many challenges and opportunities that the industry is facing. We've discussed climate change, climate smart farming. We've looked at soil health, plant nutrition, and plant vitality. We've spoken about regulations, logistics, market development, and changing consumer dynamics. What strikes me of all these topics is that it has one thing in common. Better decision requires better information. And coming back to my earlier point, I think that's been illustrated over the last 2 days. So that brings us then to this technology. When people hear about technology, They sometimes think of robots, artificial intelligence, drones flying over fields, and equipment, and that only large farming businesses can probably afford this. But technology is not about high tech, it's about being smart. A weather station is technology, soil moisture probe is technology. A cell phone that helps a farmer doing his irrigation is technology. A packhouse dashboard that identifies waste and track product over through a plant is technology. And sometimes the most powerful technology is simply information arriving at the right time, at the right person, for better decisions to be made. As agriculture, we've always been innovators. South African farmers have never had the luxury of being able to farm in the perfect conditions. We deal with variable rainfall, changing input costs, infrastructure challenges, market volatility, and increasing pressure on our natural resources. And again, I think it was elaborated in a number of sessions over the last couple of days. Yet, we adapt. The reality is that technology is becoming one of the most important tools to help us. Not because it replaces farmers, because it strengthens the experience, the judgment, and the resilience that farmers already bring to the table. And again, I think that was also being discussed at some point in time yesterday. The question is, how do we produce more value from every drop of water, every hectare of land, every liter of fuel, and every hour of labor? The answer increasingly lies in using better data and better insights. Not data for the sake of data, but data that help us anticipate weather risks, that helps us improve resource efficiency, that strengthens traceability from farm to fork, and that enable us to plan with greater confidence and less uncertainty. And perhaps where the title of today's session becomes interesting, how high-tech is high-tech? And that makes me think about what Norman spoke about, the egg production in Zambia, where probably a simple piece of technology generated actually a very high output. I would suggest that high-tech has very little to do with how sophisticated it is. And I think, again, in the egg example, it was showcased to us. The real question is, how do we solve a problem? Does it create value? Does it help us build a stronger and more sustainable potato industry? If this answer is yes, then that is exactly the right technology. As we listen to the panel this morning, I encourage you to think about gadgets and equipment. Think about collaboration. Think about learning from other industries. I think in many cases we can go and watch at other industries and other areas and see what they are using and come and apply it in our own industry, in our own sector. Think about how technology can help us become more climate ready, more resource efficient, and more competitive. Most importantly, think about the opportunities available to the next generations of South African farmers, because the future of agriculture will not be built by technology alone. It will be built by people who are willing to embrace it, innovating while remaining grounded on practical realities of what's happening on farming. From that perspective, I'm going to hand over now to my panel facilitator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lofi. So I want to start by saying there once was a famous science fiction writer that said something along the lines of, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But as the skeptical and practical farmers that we know we are, we've seen firsthand that our technology can sometimes be the furthest thing from magic and cause us many headaches. So today's talk is all about how we can implement technology in our farming businesses so that it actually makes our lives easier and not harder. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Johan Stefan. I'm a fellow potato grower, producer from Stefan and Sien Boerdery in the Sandveld. And I'm honored and excited to be here this morning to facilitate this discussion. We've got a fantastic group of individuals here. As we've mentioned, the focus for this talk is technology adoption. In other words, how to implement or apply technology in your business or on your farm. So by the end of this session, you should walk away knowing how to cut through the noise and focus on the technology that matters for your business, when to trust your gut over what the tool says, and hopefully how to adopt new technology without losing a grip on the basics. So I'd like to start by quickly just introducing our panel members, starting from on my left here. We have Lofi Brandt, who's the executive head of agribusiness at Absa. Then we've got Bruno Peroni. Bruno is the AgTech sales lead for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East at Lindsay. Then we have Okkie Vermeulen. Okkie is an expert in drone technology and provides drone services all across South Africa. Then we have Koenraad Frankel. Koenraad is an extension manager at Citrus Research International. Koenraad will really give us the citrus industry's perspective today on technology. Next to Koenraad, we have Werner Pick. Werner is a digital specialist at Syngenta, where he focuses on the CropWise platform. CropWise is an all-in-one digital platform for operational and agronomic data. And then lastly, we have Caridas, who is the CEO and founder of Kula. Kula is a digital platform that connects growers to input suppliers, funders, and buyers. So a very well-suited panel. All right. Now, I would like just briefly for each of you, starting with you, Lofi, you can decide. You've given us a good intro of your background, but we would like each of you to just give a quick overview of your background, and starting from the left.
Yeah, so I must say my background actually starts in the grain industry. For my sins, I was also involved in grain trading at some point in time. And from there, I ventured into banking in the Free State with Absa, and later on moved to Johannesburg, where I, head office banking in the agribusiness division. And yeah, I've been spending my last probably 20 years in Absa in the agricultural business side of it. I think the good thing there is it gives one exposure to the banking side of it, but then also from an agricultural perspective. I think in many instances in the bank you might only be exposed to one, but I think when we work in the sectors environment, it gives us the opportunity to sort of venture into both. So yeah, that's why. Thanks.
That's great.
So I've been in the irrigation industry for more than 20 years, starting in Brazil. Then I spent some time in the US as well, working in irrigation, center pivots, design, field service. In the last 5 years, I'm based in Europe, leading AgTech sales for Europe, Africa, and Middle East. So it's
fantastic.
Ek is Okkie Vermeulen, ook bekend as die man van die drones. So ek was 6 jaar in die gifbedryf gewees. Ek was bestuurder van die Wonderprojekte gewees en toe vind ek my passie en ek het begin met drone applikasie, die spuitwerk op dit. And I started speaking Afrikaans. But I'm in the drone industry now. I'm also a qualified DJI instructor. So what that actually means is we're providing information to DJI to improve the technology. And I've been doing the drones now for 5 years.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Koenraad Frankel. As Johan said, I'm actually part of the citrus industry. And you might think, what is this guy doing here in at the Potato Congress? But the idea is to share what we've learned and hopefully build collaborations between industries. Currently at CRI, I do all the adoption in the industry for nutrition, irrigation, plant manipulation, and ag tech. And maybe for my sins, I'm also now part of the strategic technologies project that we've started, which is basically the business intelligence for the citrus industry. So we're touching on a few things, and hopefully from this discussion we all can learn. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to actually be part of this Potato Congress, and well done, Billy, so far.
Yes, so my name is Werner Pick. Like Johan mentioned, I'm the lead for CropWise at Syngenta. I've been in the ag tech industry for the last 7 years, and I think if there's something that we can get off of this panel today is just to give more clarity on ag tech and how a farmer can use it practically in the field.
Awesome. I'm Caritas Chincholo. I am the CEO and one of the founders of one of the leading agri-techs in the country, called Kula. Interesting background. I don't have much of an agri background. I studied actuarial science at the University of Cape Town. But over the last 7-8 years, I've had the opportunity to work with farmers on the ground, building technological solutions that solve real practical problems for farmers. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of our insights in terms of what we've learned implementing technology on the ground with farmers. It's quite counterintuitive in some cases compared to other industries. Agriculture is a very, very practical industry. So yeah, looking forward to sharing a little bit more of what we do.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's dive right into the questions. So Bruno, let's start with you. If you're working for Lindsay, so you're a specialist when it comes to irrigation technology. So if you were to walk onto the typical potato farm in South Africa today, what would be the biggest irrigation mistake that you would expect to come across?
That's a great question. I would not say it's a mistake. I would say it's more a missed opportunity, because pivots are there. And my colleague Tim said the other day that pivots are like sleeping robots. So the pivots we have today already in the farm, they could do much more than they are doing today. And we have some basic technology that you add on that pivot. It can help to answer simple questions, but extremely important for farmers. How much you irrigate, when you should start the machine, how much water you should apply, and where you should apply this water. So, and another one that is important, is your machine perform well or not? So if we add this simple technology in a pivot that you have today, can help farmers to answer simple questions, but extremely important to improve the efficiency of irrigation. So I would not say it's a mistake. It's an opportunity that is there. You're not capturing that opportunity.
So I'm hearing it's you say essentially that the farmers still don't realize what you can do with pivot irrigation technology that's available already today.
Exactly. The way we are using pivots today, it's mainly just to apply water.
Yeah.
But the machine that is there can help you to make decisions on strategic decisions of how we use the water.
Yeah.
That it is a very strategic resource we have today.
Yeah, and I mean it's a incredibly current conversation right now with water scarcity in South Africa. All right, Werner. There's so much information at the moment on any typical farm coming at a farmer from different directions. How does the CropWise platform help create clarity for farmers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, just referring back to yesterday's panel, where I'm not sure who it was, but said that there's so many data points on a farm and so much data. We were speaking about data all the time, but there's nowhere where we actually have a platform where we put everything together and have a place where we can make that decision. I think having 6-7 platforms for a farmer is overwhelming. It's underutilized. So with CropWise, what we're trying to do is, if we don't do something the best, we try and integrate with someone that does it better. For example, irrigation. So for me, CropWise is that platform that just brings everything together, from telematics to your warehouses, applications, whatever operation is on the farm, plus your historical data to make decisions going forward. So yeah, I think you have to decide what is right for your farm. But a platform that can bring everything together moves the needle.
Yeah. So it's both operational data, like inputs, fertilizer, chemicals, organizing that, but also agronomic data, soil maps, etc.
Yeah, so
NDVI scans.
basically you have functions for each person on the farm. We had a quick discussion on farming is becoming more like a company. So there's people in places for various things on the farm. So we try to bring CropWise for the advisor to connect to the farmer. We want the financial person to have clarity on the stock and sort of bring that message in one place for everyone to see.
Fantastic. Oki, if I can quickly point at you. Drones are really still seen as a novelty, right, amongst a lot of farmers. What do you think is the biggest misconceptions that we as farmers have about drones?
I would say not trusting the equipment. I don't think the biggest change of drone itself. It's the decision farmers can make at a timely manner. Drone provides accurate information, precise application, helping growers to protect their yields better, reduces costs, and helping farmers to farm better. I want to give you guys statistics that we got from DJI. Hopefully this is going to help.
DJI is the Chinese manufacturer of the drones, right?
Yes, that's the DJI agricultural drone industry. So we do the agricultural drones. So since 2025, I want to give some statistics, how many hectares are sprayed, and I'm going to read this to you guys. In 2025, there's 2.1 million hectares sprayed in South Africa. Active drones in 2025 is 1,800 drones. Spreading, that's your granules, seeds, fertilizer, 201,005 hectares spread in South Africa. We've sold 900 drones in 2025, and now we're going to this year, 2026, and this is year to date. We've done 1.5 million hectares in South Africa. The spreading, that's the granules, the seeds, the fertilizer, 220,000 hectares done in South Africa.
In total.
In total.
Yeah.
And we've sold 500 drones since now. We've got 32 authorized stores in South Africa, 25 workshops, and we've got 120 authorized mechanics to work on drones.
Okay. So it's not a small industry anymore. Your services are available everywhere, and there's quite a few hectares being where they're being utilized.
Yes.
Okay, I want to move over to you, Koenraad. The citrus industry, we often assume as, from our side as potato growers, we often assume that the citrus industry is a bit further ahead in many ways, especially when it comes to technology adoption. What do you think about that? Is that true? What can we learn from you guys?
I think to a certain extent, we had some fantastic years financially. And it's such a normal thing to then try and spend money on technology. But we as an industry, we see the same problems that you're sitting with, adoption or the lack of adoption, and not really getting to close the loop. But I think what we've been, and the last couple of years that I'm seeing, the last couple of decades, the citrus industry is doing right, as we constantly bring ourselves back to what is the basics, and we base that on scientific research to say, okay, if we've got, and I'm going to use the analogy, we've spoken about it before, if you want to do a Comrades Marathon and you want to prepare for that, you're typically going to buy yourself a pair of running shoes before you buy yourself a smartwatch. Okay, so the reality is we tend to buy ourselves smartwatches and think that we're going to win the Comrades Marathon. But what we as an industry want to do, and what we're seeing is We could take the irrigation as an example. We've got some of the most sophisticated irrigation systems globally, seen from other countries as well in the citrus industry. But when I started engaging with them, I realized that we've got this Rolls-Royce or Ferrari systems, but we're really over-irrigating at a rapid amount of hectares. So we could either then focus on better technology, or we could then go and say, listen, that we need to get the baseline right of what is the principles that we're going to use, and then the technology will then enhance our decision making. So since then, we've trained 2,500 delegates in the citrus industry, and we brought out this booklet that they spoke about yesterday. So we get the baseline right. We put the running shoes on, and then slowly we start putting in consistency in what we do, get the basics right, and put the right people in place on farms, and then select the right technology. I think that's where the citrus industry is in a certain sense, and that's typically where the rest of the industries should be looking at is, don't try to be too fancy.
Yeah.
Get the basics right first. So that's where we are.
And that's really what we mean when we say, get the basics right as you're adopting or implementing new technologies.
100%.
All right, Caridas. We mentioned that your platform connects growers to input suppliers, funders, and then buyers at the end point. What do your funders and your buyers wish that your growers understood?
Yeah, I think from an agri standpoint, this one of the missing things is sort of the sharing of information. I think quite often when we have the conversations around technology and data, the farmer tends to perceive it in terms of what it means for their farm only. But actually, something very powerful happens when the input supplier, the buyer, and the lender and the farmer begin to share information. It creates an incredibly powerful network that allows the funder to make better lending decisions. It allows them to manage their risk a lot better. I think even from a buyer perspective, the buyer has multiple touch points that allow them to plan better from a supply standpoint. I think what we've started doing with the funders on our platform, which completely changed the game, particularly for your more first generation growers, is that once the funder knows what's happening on farm in a live sort of sense, it de-risks that particular grower in an incredible way. So, for example, we are able to plug into satellites like your Sentinel-2 to give the funder comfort that the farmer that you have funded did actually plant, to give the funder comfort that these are the moisture levels on this particular farm, these are the chlorophyll levels on this particular farm, this is the NDVI data on this particular farm. It reduces a farmer that would have otherwise been incredibly higher risk, but by the funder having access to that information, it kind of changes the profile to some extent. So I think part of what we're trying to do with the users on our ecosystem is the sharing of information. Quality information that is kept by one entity does not become very useful for the ecosystem as a whole. And if you talk to the buyers, you talk to Anthony from PepsiCo, etc., the buyer wants quality product in a sustainable manner. So if they can pick up that something's going wrong in a particular region, maybe the quality is not going to be so good this year, maybe the output won't be so good. It allows even the buyer to do the planning.
To plan ahead,
100%.
Yeah, and so that's very important for us as farmers to make a mind shift and understand that we're going to have to go a bit further in how we share information with both financiers and buyers. So 100%. Okay, so now I want us to move over to some core questions. This first question, I think each one of you can give an answer. And then from there on, we'll have essentially open questions. I'll direct it at one of you and we just hash them through. So the first question is, there's so much technology available to a potato farmer at the moment. But which of the technologies on offer are actually moving the needle? Lofi, can we start with you and then we just move through?
Now you're asking a banker to talk about farming.
But you know where the money is flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think it differs from farmer to farmer, and I think if one considers the context of the South African farming environment, and not just potatoes, I think across the board, you've got first of all different sizes of farms. So there's the capacity and the ability to do change might differ from farm to farm. That's the one. I think the other one is also depending on, and if we come specifically to the potato industry, we have farmers let's call it specialized potato farmers. I think you guys are typically specialized potato farmers, but then we've got farmers that farms potatoes, maize, livestock, whatever the case might be. But I think ultimately what one needs to do is to try and identify the area where with the least input you can have probably the most output. And it might not be something that you can identify on your own as a farmer. Potato farming is a sophisticated, specialized business. And I know that many rely on third parties for expertise. And it's probably something that you need to discuss with someone and some of your let's call it your stakeholders in your business to go and identify that specific area that you need to do certain change in order to create the quickest lift.
Okay, so it's a case-by-case basis.
It's a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Bruno?
Yeah, I'll give you my irrigation view about that. So
Yeah.
I think the biggest change we had years ago was remote control. Basically, farmers could start and stop a machine and see what's happening. So, but what's going to really change from now is machine diagnosis. So it's not about the machine is on and off. Is the machine performing well? Is the quality of water you're using is good? Is the pressure is good? So there's so many things that change the quality of irrigation, and combine these with a proper irrigation scheduling and using remote sensors, what we are using today with FieldNet. So to really combine the machine performance with the water that you want to apply for the crop. So for me, this is going to be the next level that can really shift what we do today. So we started years ago, basically remote control the machine, but now is how we integrated all these and give you not only a lot of data, so we are trying to keep data behind of this platform and simplify what we do in terms of recommendation. So we do the analysis, we combine all these data, sensors, moisture probes, weather. We do this job. And what we're trying to do is show you how is the machine perform in your irrigation plan for that specific machine. So because these change, but depend on the machine you have. So that's a technology we see now as the next step. And after, that's technology we have available in some countries like New Zealand. They have this quite common there. It's a variable rate irrigation. Then you go to precision irrigation, where you control every single nozzle of the machine. So that's a next step. So I see irrigation like small steps. You go from here until to reach that variable rate irrigation that I see as one of the future of irrigation here.
Okay, so I'm going to try and summarize.
Yeah.
So it's step one was just using a irrigation management platform to start and stop.
Exactly.
And then we're moving to actually seeing how many kilowatts a pump is pulling, what the pressure is in different parts of the system, where the pivot is currently on the field, all of that. And then you're saying there's beyond that, the next step is variable irrigation.
Yes.
So that with, I assume, using solenoids and so on.
Yes.
To apply differently across your field.
Imagine, for example, it's quite common. You do not have the same soil type under pivot. So, and different soil types, they need different amount of water. So, and we have the technology today to apply just the amount of water that specific soil needs. For that specific crop. So, and when I talk about the machine diagnosis, for example, let's give a very practical example. One common problem center pivots today, it's alignment fault. A pivot can get stuck in one position. And you as a farm today, you get an alert to say, my machine is stopped. But the technology we have today, I can point you the exactly tower that is in a fault. And I can tell you if it's a real fault or not. If it's not a real fault, you can remote start the machine.
Yeah.
Feel safe. And if you know that machine is a tower 3, for example, when you go there, you can save a huge amount of time. Instead of inspect the whole machine, you know exactly where the fault is.
Yeah.
So it is a combination of your machine being smart and technology that helps you to decide on irrigation.
Yeah. No, I think irrigation is a critical component of potato farming. So we know these technologies are going to, we already use a lot of them, but especially the variable irrigation is something that's, I think, a lot of farmers are curious about at the moment. Yeah, so Oki, I should rather ask you now, not what technology is moving the needle, but how do you think drone technology is moving the needle, or why it is moving the needle?
Firstly, I would say, are we using the drones correctly? Are we utilizing the equipment that we've currently got? So there's a few topics I want to explain to you guys. Drones makes life so much easier for us. But if we don't have the right employees using the correct equipment, we're not utilizing it so like we're supposed to. In the time that we used drones, we used NDVI imaging. So we found a few things. Firstly, are we spraying correctly with the drones? What's the right way to spray it? For example, if I can ask a question, what's the best way to apply drone technology on a field? Do we have to spray it in the farrows, or it's going to be better against the farrows, against the rows? So with NDVI imaging, we saw a few mistakes that we made. It's better to apply the drone against the rows. Most drone applicators or a new farmer that wants to buy a drone, we have a look at social media and we see that, wow, other places they are flying over pivots. That's the biggest mistake we can also make. By flying over the pivot at that speed, we're not getting penetration. So that means 1 to 5 hectares of that we didn't cover. So there the problem starts again. So, yeah.
So you say that when it comes to the drones, you're moving the needle. It's definitely making a difference, and it's because you've really started to figure out the issues, and yeah, you can operate fast and you can operate at scale, and yeah. Maybe just a quick question for you from my side. When exactly does a farmer contact you to use a drone? Is it just to spray all hectares, or is it to spray? Is it typically, because in my mind it's when you have areas in your field that you can't enter into, and then you need a drone?
Yeah, that's typically normally what happens. We get farmers phoning us with problems in the field. We take our multi-spectrum drones, we identify spots where there's problems, and then we apply only to those spots.
Okay. Okay, so to you three, if any of you want to weigh in, what technology do you think is moving the needle? Otherwise, I'll move over to the next question.
I think, yeah, if I think of what we're busy with in the citrus industry, with plant growth regulators and genetics, better genetics, all different aspects. I think we should always ask ourselves, is that the stuff that's going to make the difference? Or are we confronted with some aspects that's a little bit more out of our control? So if we had a fantastic rugby team, all of them are doing fantastic work, but all of a sudden there's a Jonah Loma on the wing that's going to run havoc. We all cross-tackle that specific player. Now what I'm thinking is, and what we're seeing in the citrus industry, is that climate is that player that we need to side tackle. Now, we had a lot of discussions on that climate, and I think hyper-localized weather data is going to shift it. And it's not only putting a weather station on your farm. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. That is part of the puzzle that you need to, of one of the pieces of the puzzle. What we're looking for is to build trends over time so that you on your farm can identify anomalies that's going to happen in season. So what we're seeing is someone mentioned yesterday on the panels that we're seeing life cycles of pests that's turning out different. Extra spikes that we didn't see. Flowering periods, that's not ideal. But you would never pick that up if you didn't have a trend. Okay. So genetics and PGRs and all those things are definitely pushing the needle. But the one thing that we can't manipulate is climate. And that's building up trends. So that's what I want to try and push for. And the answer maybe is lying in a sense where if we can get collaboration between industries on climatic conditions, that might push the needle completely, and that's what we're looking for. So that is the big journaloma that we need to tackle, and I feel that's where we need to focus.
But I'll get to you in a moment, Caridas. But I just want to add to this. A lot of farmers get the weather station on the farm. I mean, we also have weather stations, and then they don't really use them. So I think it's very important that farmers, you can start quite easily. We spoke a lot about irrigation over the past, yesterday and this morning as well. Using just the evapotranspiration and getting to a point where you're calculating the water requirement for your fields. That can make such a difference, not to just guess it every day. It's more effort to guess it than to use your weather station evapotranspiration forecast. And it's just much more accurate. You don't waste as much electricity, water. So,
can I give you maybe just one sentence on that? Just to give you an idea, I looked at that in Citrusdal, Cladwilliam this year, where we had varieties that bombed out completely and we didn't have set on that fruit. And we looked at the evapotranspiration, which is a combination of the temperatures, wind, relative humidity. In that area, especially where you farm, relative humidity goes down, temperatures go up. And if we put wind to that, the ETO, which you would typically think, okay, it sometimes even more than doubles.
Yeah.
So if you think of just normal, you've put a weather station there, you think you've got roughly the ETO. If that wind goes up with another 5 kilometers per hour, which you don't even feel that ETO rapidly increase. And that stress period in cell division or in flowering period could be detrimental for potato industry. So that's the thing that we're going for, not only ticking the box for weather stations.
Yeah. And hopefully in the future, Bruno, the irrigation platform will already pull in.
Yeah, we are doing that
and
right
then
now.
Execute.
Yeah, because the direction you're moving, and I like your point, because the direction you're moving now is not giving you the job to interpret a weather station or a moisture probe. We are doing that.
Yeah.
It's not giving you any DVI image and say, make your conclusion. No.
Yeah.
We are using AI and we are speeding a lot of AI. So we are checking your weather station, your moisture probe if you have, your soil algorithms, everything. We are combining these
soil probes,
and we are making an interpretation of that and give you a plan.
A recommendation.
Yeah. But there's so much things happen between a plan and what's happening in the field, but we give you a plan every day. And you as a farm can make a decision, maybe I'm facing a load shedding, so I need to postpone my irrigation. I can ask my plan to recalculate and reassess that, and then I give you another plan based on your limitations. So that's the direction we are moving now.
Yeah, but now the farmer might ignore that recommendation because he thinks maybe it's I don't trust it yet. And that's one of the difficult things, or it's just an overwhelming amount of information. But I think when it comes to the scheduling of irrigation, I see a lot of the steps of taking the ETO and getting to the recommendation of how many millimeters per field. A lot of that is just repetition. It's just multiplying things out. So I think it would be great to have a recommendation on a platform, and then we as farmers can spend more time actually verifying that the amount that was recommended is correct. So, I mean, you can go out to the field and determine if the system is, modeling correctly. And I think that's really the vision that you're coloring in here is definitely what I also see playing out slowly but surely.
Yeah, and can I give another, for example, if you get a recommendation to apply 20 millimeters, I doubt it's going to be 20 millimeters across the whole circle of a pivot.
Yeah.
So the way we do today, we understand every single angle, and I say for this slice of pizza, you need 10. Here you need 15. So, but we do this job. So, and you just need to go and see and agree on our recommendation.
But that's a different level of complexity, because then you need the soil texture data. So you need then to have the soil texture data also on the system.
Yes.
But that is fantastic. I mean, you know, in the Sunveld, we also have fields that, especially in the winter, we have great variability.
Yeah,
Some parts are completely waterlogged and other parts are under irrigated. So yeah, Caridas. We were still on this question of what technology do you think is moving the needle?
I think somebody put it best earlier when they said when technology works well, it feels like magic. And I think for me, it's not one single facet of technology. It's at the intersection of drone technology, artificial intelligence, and also e-commerce. I think if you're able to take the data that you get from a drone, the data that you get from a satellite, and then use artificial intelligence to turn that data. And I think we use data, information, and everything quite interchangeably. But if you can take that raw data, you can turn it into insights that a farmer can actually use practically. And with farmers that are probably still emerging, etc., that can also turn into a purchase where, you know, the drone gives you the raw data, then the raw data AI can interpret that data, then gives you an insight. Like you were saying now, in terms of you could generate a recommendation that a farmer could review instead of them having to start from scratch in putting that recommendation together. One of the cool things that we've implemented for your more emerging growers, we built our own AI that allows a farmer to be able to take a picture, because usually the difference between your emerging and commercial grower, the commercial grower does a lot of pre-planning to avoid issues happening on the farm in the first place, whereas your emerging grower usually is reactive. The issue is already on farm. So we allow them to be able to take an image, and then the AI is able to tell them what's wrong with the particular plant, suggest what the product they need to buy is, what the active ingredient of that particular product is, and then at the click of a button, they can order that product, and that product can arrive on farm the next day. You've taken a process that could have taken a 2-week period, a 3-week period, and you've compressed it into a shorter period of time. You've given access to, you know, a grower that otherwise would not have had access to an expert who would pick up what the issue is and recommend what the active ingredient needs to be. So I think for me, the magic really happens at an intersection where drone technology, satellite technology, e-commerce kind of come together. And I think we should not be viewing these pieces of technology separately to say the drone will do this, the satellite will do this, and the AI will do this. It's actually when they come together
100%.
and you're able to leverage that so that you get real life outcomes.
That makes me think a bit about how some technologies are like infrastructure, and other technologies are just like a tool, but some of them become infrastructure, like, you know, irrigation technology, etc. So, very interesting. So, I want to get to a very important question, which a lot of us farmers have, and that is, how do we know when to trust what the data is saying, and when to trust our gut? So Bruno, if we can start with you, and then we'll move over to Werner and Koenraad maybe. How do we trust? When do we trust?
Yeah, that's a great point to discuss, because I personally believe that a good technology is the one that is aligned with the farm experience. And the way we are at least thinking about Finado Advisor, that is the tool we give for recommendation, is not to give you a magic answer about your irrigation. Is to give you the best information with the available data we have for your weather, crop, and satellite image, and your machine. And based on that, you can align your farm experience with what you see as a recommendation. I think you cannot pretend that technology is gonna replace the farm experience. So, and most of the things we do today, and the way we correct our tool and we improve our tool, the brain of our tool, is listen farms. They say, hey, I notice that when I get this recommendation, my crop behaves like that. So, and we are doing improvements based on the farm experience. So I think technology is a combination, and you as a farm, you should have the technology that meets with your farm experience. So it's not going to be, I'll just trust the data and drive. It's not like that.
Yeah, like if you have that fully automated irrigation system, then your job becomes to validate the amount that it's recommending to irrigate. Is it doing a good job?
Yeah.
Then you go validate. You can't just let your managers or the system just go.
Yeah, in theory, we have the technology today to make a pivot fully autonomous. We could do that. But as I said, there's so much things happen in a field. There's disease control. There's so many things that complexity. The farm environment is not a simple one. It's one of the most complex industry we have. So technology, I think it comes to empower the farm experience. That's the way you see technology.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this question?
Johan, yes. Just on this point, I love this question because I think digital platforms, from a platform perspective, the adoption rate of platforms is not as high in agriculture because when do you trust the data? When do you trust your gut, right? But I always see it as when you see a picture of a car, you don't just buy it, you go test drive it. You want to feel how it drives, right? So I always see digital platforms as a guideline for the advisor and the farmer to make the decision. Gives you an easier way to have an overview on where to focus your energy on in a busy schedule. So, yeah, it's for me, a platform is just as good as the user. And I think when it comes to digital specifically, that integration between an advisor with the farmer to make that decision is very, very important. So there's a lot of technologies and platforms out there, and each of those platforms are great in their own sense. But I would rather say to a farmer, choose one that gives you the right answers and utilize it fully rather than having 6 or 7 platforms on your farm.
That's a great point. And I've burnt my own fingers doing exactly that, where you read about something, you do your own research, and then you try and implement it without really realizing how much effort you need to put into, and you need the supplier's consultant to be there with you to implement that thing correctly. Whether it be a crop-wise, like a digital platform, we need to as farmers, rather take one tool, go a bit slower, work well and deeply with the supplier's technical person, and then the trust will come, right, in the data. And along that whole process, you keep verifying on the ground. And that's what it should be doing. The technology should be allowing you to go verify more and more and be outdoors more. That's how I see it.
100%.
Lofi.
Yeah, look, I think in my mind, farmers do trials all the time. So it's not uncommon for farmers to do trials on their farms, whether it's with fertilizer, seed, whatever the case might be. And I think this is the same. So when you're going to adopt new technology, at some point in time, you're going to trial and test it, and you're going to verify. And I think that's ultimately farmers are doing it. I think with technology you do exactly the same. It will definitely be something new to get used to, and I can understand why people and farmers are nervous, and especially when you talk about a high value crop like potatoes, where input costs are extremely high and where you can't necessarily afford mistakes. I can expect that farmers will be more, let's call it, conservative. But ultimately, trials is a common thing on a farm, and I think that's probably the principle that farmers will follow.
Maybe just one final point on this question is, if you leave a digital platform for someone that you've never tried before, let's say you move from bank, right, and you're the first time on a new banking app, you don't know what to do, so you still need that advisor. So I think the success for a platform on a farm and adoption for that platform comes with the service that you give with that platform.
100%.
We're very quickly running out of time, but I'm going to try and prioritize our questions here. There's one specific challenge that a farmer is faced with, I guess any business owner, and that is you've got a constraint on capital. So you need to look at the landscape of the tools that are on offer and decide which one am I going to invest in. So I'd like to ask the panel, how would you recommend a farmer to approach prioritizing where to invest? Should we invest in technology, in like CropWise, like Lindsay's irrigation automation? Should we invest more in other types of equipment or people? Just a bit of broader conversation about this, about that constraint, so that we address that issue, because it is a daily issue. We can start anyway. Maybe Koenraad, you can start for us.
For me, what we preach in the citrus industry is invest in people. The reality is, if you get good people on your farm, and we heard it last night with one of the winners, it was really saying he's got a team and has invested in those people. They will build the systems and they'll start naturally groundproofing things for you, and they will identify what the technology is that you need. And you should enable them then to select the technology and give them the support so that technology actually enables them to make better decisions, but not dictate their decisions only. So I think that is very important. We should always keep that authenticity of bringing, really enabling good people, because they will identify where's the gaps for you, and you then fill it up with technology, and not the other way around. Because then you think you're gonna replace people, but you always need groundproofing and final decision making. That's fortunately and unfortunately always people.
Yeah, it makes me think about someone said, or there's this saying that technology can amplify. It amplifies anything. It's just a lever. It leverages. Yeah. So if you have a mess in terms of one of your processes, and you implement the technology in that division, it amplifies that mess. So the people that are running that part of your business, whether it be your spraying or your irrigation, managing your irrigation, that needs to run well, needs to have the right people with the right training, and only then think about technology.
Exactly.
Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. So there's just to give an example quick. We've got irrigation citrus farmers that are really doing the irrigation right. And we checked out, is there systems? Most of them have teams, small teams of maybe 1 or 2 people that constantly grow through the orchards, check the irrigation, check if there's needs to be maintenance on that, do soil moisture test, and while they're there, also do pest scouting. And because of that, the irrigation, everything is just up to that 1%. So I think you're 100% right. Get the people right and give them the ability to choose what technology they need, and then let them enable it.
Koenraad, just to add there, I think if you get the right people on the farm, it will naturally move 100%. to digital or technology. Technology can be a lot of things in farming. So the right people will automatically move to that, because that is the future.
100%.
Yeah,
we are going in.
Often, as farmers think, you could think from the automation perspective and think, you want less and less people, but people are still crucial, right? So, yeah.
Still the best thing that the Lord has created.
Did you want to say something?
100%. Yeah. No, I think just to echo what's been said, I think the tech is merely a tool. I think it's, especially in agriculture, it's not an industry where you can replace the human touch and the touch and feel. And also, tech is very much garbage in, garbage out. If you give it poor information, if you give it garbage, you're going to get garbage on the other side. So you want to make sure that, and it's the people that are at the starting point where they need to put in the quality information. And when the quality information goes in, then you can get quality insights. So the tech in agri will not replace, the farmer. If anything, it's like an additional expert on farm that provides insights to the farmer to allow them to make the proper decision. But the start of the process is the farmer providing quality information. The end of the process is the farmer making the ultimate final decision on their farm. So it's merely a tool, and it's there to give the farmer a competitive edge against perhaps your competitors. Perhaps you learn something from the tech that will give you better yield, something from the tech that will give you better quality, but it's not there to replace. It is merely just a tool to enhance, like you said.
Okay, guys, we've flown through the time available, so I just want to check with the people that are in control here. Do we have 5 more minutes for questions, or should we go to a few questions from the floor right now? 5 minutes for more questions. Okay. Does that include the floor questions? Okay, I think then let's go to the floor, because the valuable insights will come from the floor. Anyone that have a question for one of the panel members? And there's no such thing as a stupid question.
I can maybe in the meantime, while we wait for a question, give an example that we discussed. We had a couple of years ago when I was still consulting, we were still doing NDVI imagery with aeroplanes at that stage. It was a massive operation to get flight plans and everything. You remember that time. And one of the farmers out in Grabouw, apple farmer, was on order, had 3 tractors that he wanted to buy. And we presented the whole NDVI imagery and so forth. And he had a discussion and he said, okay, he's going to only take 2 tractors. And the money from the last tractor, he was going to do NDVI scanning of that farm. But he wants us to go visit every single management zone or that the NDVI delineates. And we'll make a hole in that area and we'll see what is actually going on there. And we did the exercise, and a lot of that came out was either over drainage issues, that he actually put in drainage, or it was pH issues, and he could actually rectify that permanently. So he adopted specific technologies, but it actually enabled him to make good decisions that permanently changed his business. And I think that is what this is about, is to try and close that loop completely. And it made a massive difference for him after that few years. So.
But it's because he went and verified.
100%.
Yeah. That added the value.
So it's a human factor on that.
Otherwise, it's just a dashboard showing you some recommendation, and you pretty soon will say, no, that thing is stupid. Its recommendations are incorrect.
Exactly. The technology would have got a bad name, but he went there and he physically ground-proofed it.
Yeah.
So the human factor was there, and it was a game changer.
Yeah.
If I can add, we briefly touched about variable rate irrigation. Just to give some numbers, real numbers from farmers in New Zealand. Today, with variable rate irrigation installed on the pivots, they are saving between potatoes between 28 and 35% of water. And water means pumping, that means energy, and you can put fertilizer and chemicals or whatever. And you as a farm can make a decision. Can I treat this as a cost reduction, or I can produce more with this 30% of water that I have available? Just to give you some numbers, what precision irrigation can do and variable irrigation can do in the future. So for the next years, I would say irrigation scheduling, and then think seriously about variable rate irrigation.
No, that's some serious numbers. So that gives us an idea of the ROI. That's a lot of water to be saved. Obviously, it will differ a bit between one region to another, field to one field to another field. But definitely something we all are going to have to look into. Any questions from the floor yet? There's one there. Pete.
Yes, Johan. Perhaps just something I want to share on precision farming, which links with what we're talking about here. It's a survey they did in the US now this year, and it's been coming from 2019. On which features does they use in precision farming, and which are growing and which are going down. Now, things like auto steering, yield monitoring, they're up there. There's about 80% people are using it. But then you get some of them which are going down. And interesting, these are the stuff that don't make money. So they are sorted out. So economics count. The interesting ones which are going up is data storing, because we are generating more data. Logic. Other one is the applying of crop inputs with drones. It's grown over the last 3 years from 5% to 15%. So definitely something which Okia in, which are growing and will be growing. Just a comment.
Yeah, that could also be because we know the larger equipment is capitally very expensive and drones are slightly more, the entry level is a bit lower. That's just an opinion. But yeah, that's very interesting, Pete. Is there anyone else want to ask something for the panel?
No.
Nothing. All right. Guys, I'm going to have to wrap us up then. So I want to just say thank you for all of you for taking the time to be here today and share some knowledge and some insights with us. To the audience and the growers, I hope you've heard again today that implementing technology that works, it's not easy, and that it's okay to take it slow, and sticking to the basics as you implement the solutions that are appropriate for your business is the best way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I know you've been laughing at my hat, and I've decided to get serious, right? This is my serious hat, man, okay? I can't tell you what this thing can see, but it's, it's looking at you and it's telling me a lot about you guys. All right, but let's not leave those stories, not for the newspapers, right? So, but this is a helmet that costs 300,000 Rand. It's got sensors in, it's got everything that you can think about in. We were part of the testing of this helmet. It was developed in America. It was a failure. I'll tell you why. Just imagine a farmer like yourselves with this in a Land Cruiser, right? I mean, Land Cruiser, the radio is 1970s, okay? And just like imagine yourself sitting in a Land Cruiser with this, right? So adoption, we talk about technology, that technology needs to be adopted. And what is also about technology is that technology must make difficult things, complex things simple. It's not making it more complex, right? That is why Apple was so successful. Sony, I studied Sony. I went to Japan in the engineering shops. Incredible engineers, incredible technology. Sony was far ahead of Apple. And it's got buttons and it's got everything that nobody used. And Apple then created one button. That's where you take technology to a level where you're making it easy. Now, if we think about this, right? These glasses of mine, I can tell you now, all farmers here will have these glasses on in the next 5 years. Right? Many of you might have said, listen, when this mobile phone came out, you would have said, we're never going to use that thing.
Battery 97%.
Now you can't do without it. This is the future. It's got a camera in. I can talk to it. Hi, Meta. Hi, Meta. It's obviously the sound is confusing it a bit, but I can talk to it and I can take a picture. I'm just taking a picture of yourselves. I can have a discussion, and so you can look at a plant and say, "Listen, what are you seeing?" And talk back to you. The technology is here, and this costs 10,000 Rand, right? So this is where technology is moving. It's making complex things simple. So, yeah, I mean, it is, and I think what wasn't discussed a lot is that this is connected to AI, connecting it to your sensors on your farm, all operations. It's like Tony Stark, right? Iron Man. We are there. AI talking to you, telling you there's a problem with an area of your farm. You're talking back to it. You're giving it an instruction. Don't think it's far away. It's here with us. So, and I think that somebody said, listen, people have got weather stations and all these things, and it's not being used because people have still got to go to the computer and use it. But when you have an assistant like this, it will talk to you and you talk back. So Apple's bringing out various glasses this year. A lot of other companies are running with this. So just something for you to think about. One other point that I want to raise here is the next slide here is about when do you innovate? I'm talking about you can't innovate, we've agreed. You can improve every day, but you can't innovate every day. And this is an interesting slide because as your business grows and your farm improves, you go up on profits. It's like, poof, we're making money, everything is looking cool, right? There's no urgency. Why do I need to innovate? I'm making lots of money. Everything is going well, okay? And then you go over climate change, soil problems, plant problems, and then comes the point of, whoa, I now want to innovate. But what happens there? Money is a problem? Or are you going to throw money at when your profits are doing this, when your cash flow is negative? No, you're not. And this is the point. Most successful companies, I'll give you the statistics. Only 10% of companies innovate on the upside. There's no urgency, but they have the funds, they have the ability. That's why companies, again, like Apple, keeps on going like this. They don't need to innovate, they want to innovate. So be careful of innovating when you are in a decline of profits, when your yields are falling, because then you'll be very sensitive towards the money that you're going to take out. So that's just some timing in terms of innovation.